After 40 years on this bench, I believed I had witnessed every possible way life could test a human being. Every kind of mistake, every form of hardship, every story of regret. But last Tuesday morning proved me wrong. The heavy oak doors of the courtroom slowly opened and a woman stepped inside. She didn't look like a criminal. She didn't carry the arrogance of someone guilty, nor the defiance I often see. Her name was Maria. She clutched a worn-out coat tightly around her shoulders, as if it were the only thing holding her together. Her eyes, they carried a level of exhaustion that no amount of sleep could ever fix. This wasn't physical tiredness, it was life weighing her down. She wasn't there for something dramatic. No high-speed chase, no fraud, no violence. She was being sued by a multi-million-dollar supermarket chain for walking out with a loaf of bread and a small carton of milk. The prosecutor called it retail theft. The law called it a violation. But as I looked at her trembling hands and the way she avoided every gaze in the room, I knew I wasn't looking at a thief. I was looking at a mother who had reached the absolute end of her strength. And what unfolded next shook that entire courtroom. Before I continue, let me ask you something. If you saw someone drowning, would you punish them for splashing water? Or would you reach out and pull them to safety? Because that's exactly what this moment became. Maria stood at the podium, her voice barely audible. She told me she had lived in Providence her entire life. Her father had been a fisherman, a man who believed that hard work always brought reward. But life doesn't always follow that rule. 6 months ago, the daycare where she worked shut down. Then came the eviction notice, and then the silence of empty cupboards. Her 7-year-old son, Leo, hadn't had a proper meal in 2 days. When she walked into that store, she didn't see a crime. She saw her son's hungry eyes. I looked at the case file. City versus Maria Silva. The store demanded the maximum penalty, a $500 fine, and a permanent criminal record. To them, it was about setting an example. But to me, it felt like setting a life on fire. A woman who couldn't afford a $2 loaf of bread expected to pay $500. That's not a punishment. That's a sentence of hopelessness. The prosecutor stood confidently, listing facts, policies, procedures. His voice was precise, emotionless, like he was reading from a machine. Rules, deterrence, system stability. But something was missing. Humanity. I leaned forward and asked him quietly but firmly, "Do you truly believe putting a starving mother in jail is a victory for justice?" He hesitated, but returned to policy. That's when I realized something dangerous. Sometimes the system hides behind rules so well, it forgets people exist. Maria broke down. She whispered that if she went to jail, no one would pick up her son from school. He would be taken away. And in that moment, this wasn't just a case anymore. It was a child's future hanging in the balance. I turned to the supermarket representative, a company making millions, demanding punishment over bread. "Do you really need to see this woman behind bars?" I asked. He said nothing, because deep down, he knew the answer. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly man in the courtroom stood up. His name was Mr. Henderson. He spoke about Maria, how she worked 2 jobs, how she helped neighborhood kids with homework, how she never complained. "She's not a thief," he said. "She's someone the world stopped helping." And just like that, the truth surfaced. Maria admitted she had walked past that bread 3 times before picking it up. 3 times, fighting her pride, fighting her desperation, until her love for her son won. I asked my clerk to check something. Turns out, that same store throws away more fresh bread every night than Maria took. Think about that. We protect waste, but punish hunger. At that moment, I knew I couldn't give an ordinary verdict, so I did something no one expected. I stood up and said, "Yes, Maria is guilty, and I fine her $10. The room froze, but I continued. "I'm not going to make her pay it. Instead, I'm fining every person in this courtroom 50 cents for living in a city where a mother has to steal to feed her child." Silence. Then, I took out my wallet and placed the first $10. And something incredible happened. One by one, people stood up. A police officer, Mr. Henderson, even the store representative. Money filled the hat, not out of obligation, but out of awakening. Over $400 was collected. But more importantly, something else was restored: humanity. I looked at the prosecutor. "Do you still want jail time?" He shook his head, because now, even he understood. Maria didn't just receive money that day, she received dignity, a second chance, a reminder that she was seen. Then came another miracle. Mr. Henderson offered her a job through his wife's catering business. Not charity, opportunity. And for the first time, Maria stood tall, not as a defendant, but as a mother with a future. Months later, I received a drawing from Leo, a smiling judge, and a big loaf of bread. Maria wrote that she was working, stable, and finally at peace. That's when it truly hit me. We didn't just close a case that day, we changed a life. Because justice isn't just about rules, it's about people. And sometimes the most powerful verdict isn't punishment, it's compassion. So next time you see someone struggling, don't just see a problem, see a person. Because respect costs nothing.